A funny thing happened to me on the way to the theater. At the stage door, I passed a bunch of Muppet fans, and suddenly I hear...
Good grief, the comedian's a bear!
No, he's a nut. He's a wearing a necktie.
Sometimes a whole generation is touched by one common show they grew up watching. A whole generation that owned the same stuffed characters, collected the same toys, shirts, and posters, and repeated the same lines with their friends. But what happens if not only one generation is touched, but multiple? No matter what year you were born, there's a show that any kid born from the 50s to nowadays has seen, or at least has heard of. A group of characters so influential we all recognize, created by a mysterious mastermind who changed the course of kids' shows forever and defined our childhoods. A simple puppeteer whose legacy is still alive today. Of course, I'm talking about Jim Henson, performer and creator of iconic shows such as The Muppets, Fraggle Rock, and Sesame Street, just to name a few.
It's nice to be here, and hello out there in TV land. Mm-hmm.
This man changed the world, but for us to understand what he actually did, let's go back and see who he was. Jim Henson was born in 1936 in Greenville, Mississippi. When he was 4 years old, his family moved to Washington, D.C. A few years later occurred what Henson describes as the biggest event of his adolescence. The family got their first TV set. Henson was suddenly presented with the shows and people that would influence his entire career, such as the ventriloquist Edgar Bergen, Burr Tillstrom, and Bill and Cora Bard. It was there he discovered his passion for puppeteering. At age 18, while still attending high school, he began working for a local television network, creating puppets for a children's show called the Junior Morning Show. Upon graduation, he enrolled at the University of Maryland, where he decided to create his own puppet show. As a freshman, he joined forces with senior Jane Nebel to create Salmon Friends, a 5-minute show that aired twice daily on WRC-TV. The characters on the show turned out to be forerunners of the Muppets, and included a prototype of what would become Henson's most famous character, Kermit the Frog.
Yes, indeed, but let's not be quite so formal. Why don't you just call me Kermit, and I'll call you, what would you like me to call you?
For the show, Henson began experimenting with techniques that changed the way in which puppetry was used on television. First, he took advantage of the frame defined by the camera shot to allow the puppet performer to work from off-camera without being seen. But what made him stand out most were his puppet designs. He believed that television characters needed to have life and sensitivity, so that's what he aimed for with his puppets. At that time, most puppets were still made of carved wood, which limited the amount of emotion they were able to portray. So Henson gave his puppets more flexibility to allow them to express a wider array of emotions. He did this by using fabric-covered foam rubber. Then he changed the way of manipulating them. A marionette's arms were usually controlled by strings, but Henson used rods to move his Muppet's arms, allowing better control and therefore greater expressiveness. And lastly, he wanted the character's speech to be more believable. Previous puppets had random mouth movements, but it didn't feel organic, so he developed precise mouth movements to match the dialogue.
Gee, I see.
Salmon Friends was a financial success, but Henson began to have doubts about going into a puppeteering career once he graduated. So he traveled to Europe and spent several months watching puppet performers who thought of their work as an art form. With a newfound determination, he returned to the States, and shortly after began dating his assistant Jane. They were married in 1959, and they founded the Muppets Inc. together. The Hensons spent the next decade working on children's projects and commercials. The popularity of Salmon Friends led to a series of guest appearances on variety shows, such as The Steve Allen Show, The Jack Parr Show, and The Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, are you what you're doing, little froggy?
I am singing a song.
Oh, you're singing a song. Okay, Froggy, I sing too.
These broadcasts gave him great exposure, which led to multiple companies wanting to have his characters appear in their commercials. Among the most popular of Henson's commercials was a series made for a local coffee company called Wilkins Coffee. The company appreciated how the puppets were able to get away with a greater level of slapstick violence than would be acceptable or even possible with human actors. The idea behind these commercials was simple yet revolutionary. Instead of trying to sell the product by persuasion, they tried to sell by making people laugh.
You have any Wilkins coffee in your house? No. You know, a house isn't a home without Wilkins coffee.
And it worked. The first 7-second commercial for Wilkins was an immediate hit, and Henson was able to reshoot it for local coffee companies throughout the United States.
Okay, buddy, what do you think of Wilkins coffee? I never tasted it. Now, what do you think of Wilkins?
He ultimately produced more than 300 coffee ads. The characters were so successful at selling coffee that soon other companies began seeking them to promote their products. The famous Cookie Monster was designed for a series of commercials for General Foods, which ended up never airing. However, Henson kept the character and later used it to promote the Munchos line of potato snacks by Frito-Lay.
Found Munchos!
Try them. You'll discover there's more to a Muncho.
In 1963, Henson and Jane moved to New York City, where Jane quit performing to raise their children. Jim hired a team that would help him grow his business, while he also began exploring filmmaking. He produced a series of experimental films, and was even nominated for an Academy Award for Best Live-Action Short Film in 1966 with Timepiece. Although these movies weren't a huge hit, they helped him hone his filmmaking and puppetry techniques. A children's television crew, impressed by his work, reached out and asked him to work full-time on a public television series that would help children, especially those from low-income families, prepare for school. Sesame Street. Henson took the job, and he himself performed a few characters such as Ernie from Bert and Ernie, game show host Guy Smiley, and his beloved Kermit, who appeared as a roving television news reporter.
Hi-ho, this is Kermit the Frog, and I am speaking to you from the studio of that world-famous composer, Mr. Don Music.
I'll never get it up.
Originally, Henson's Muppets appeared separately from the realistic segments, but the show was later revamped to combine both segments, placing much greater emphasis on Henson's work. Sesame Street was a monster success, and Henson was able to stop producing commercials and devote his full time to what he really loved.
You look like an intelligent young man.
I do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do, sure.
He was invited on talk shows, but this time not just to have the puppets act out a sketch or a song, but to present the genius behind them. Examples of this are The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and The Dick Cavett Show. These interviews, in which he was always accompanied by one of his puppets, were evidence of his great talent for portraying two characters at once, the puppet and himself. Even when Henson was talking, he managed to keep the Muppet alive.
What's Kermit made of?
I made the first Kermit out of a spring coat of my mother's, and a couple of ping pong balls.
I see.
For the eyes. We still use ping pong balls.
I don't.
Humiliating.
Henson knew his Muppets could entertain more than just children, and in an effort to expand his audience, he produced a series of sketches for the first season of Saturday Night Live. These sketches, targeting adults, aired for 4 months, but the team eventually realized the two styles didn't match, and they left the show.
I'm sorry, boys. Elvis, Scred?
Yeah. What?
You're not on this week. I'm sorry.
After that, he began developing a weekly television series for adults called The Muppet Show. It was presented as a variety show hosted by Kermit, featuring comedic sketches and musical numbers, as well as rotating famous guest stars. At first, American networks rejected this series, believing that the Muppets would only appeal to kids' audiences.
We give it a 3.
Oh, well, maybe it wasn't that good. Let's give it a 1.
So he pitched the show to a British financier, who agreed to produce the show. He moved his creative team to England, where The Muppet Show began taping to be distributed worldwide. From there, history was made.
Are you Kermit the Frog?
Yes, Fozzie, I am Kermit the Frog.
Notes for you.
And The Muppet Show became extremely popular, and celebrities were eager to appear in it. It ran from 1976 to 1981, and continued to run in syndication for many, many years after.
I think I ought to see a doctor.
Oh, why do you say that?
I'm beginning to like the show.
In the middle of that run, the Henson team decided to create the first Muppet movie, which premiered in 1979. It was both a critical and financial success.
All I can see are millions of frogs on tiny crutches.
The film remains a classic to this day. Kermit's song, The Rainbow Connection, sung by Henson, hit number 25 on the Billboard Top 100 and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
Henson's teammates frequently compared Jim to Kermit, a shy, gentle boss who ran things with whim and explosion. Even Henson recognized Kermit as an alter ego.
When I'm manipulating Kermit, he's a living being to me. He's very much a part of me. And by way of demonstration, you see, I am indeed a puppet. This is not something I like to talk about very much, but it is true that I am a puppet. And there's a puppeteer, and he's working the puppet, and he's looking at the monitor. See? Oh my goodness.
In 1981, they made the second Muppet movie, The Great Muppet Caper, which was directed by Henson himself, and that's when he decided to end the Muppet Show, to focus on making films. The Muppets took Manhattan in 1984, which was sadly Henson's last performance as Kermit in a feature film.
Kermit is the one that's, I've been doing him the longest because he's been around about 30 years now. And so, he's close to me.
Although the team went on to create many more Muppet films over the decades, the latest being The Muppets Most Wanted in 2014. In 1979, he created Jim Henson's Creature Shop, a visual effects company, and shortly after was contacted by Lucasfilm to help with the creation and articulation of Yoda for The Empire Strikes Back. He suggested that George Lucas use his good friend Frank Oz as the puppeteer and voice of Yoda.
Do or do not. There is no try.
And in the years since, the team has helped create puppetry and special effects for hundreds of commercials, movies, and TV shows, and continues working today. Later, in 1982, he founded the Jim Henson Foundation to promote and develop the art of puppetry in the United States. The foundation recognizes the talent of puppeteers by granting awards. That same year, he also co-founded Henson International Television, a distribution company for children's television. After that, he began creating darker and more realistic-looking fantasy films that did not feature the Muppets, exploring themes like mortality. The first film was 1982's The Dark Crystal, which he co-directed with Frank Oz. They explained that they wanted to create a sense of realism with creatures that felt alive. The visual style was very distinct from the Muppets. This groundbreaking film was a technical marvel and a financial and critical success.
It's time to make my move.
But not all his movies were. 1986's Labyrinth, a musical fantasy starring David Bowie and a young Jennifer Connelly that Henson directed by himself, although receiving positive reviews, the film didn't do that well commercially. Today, however, it is considered a cult classic, with those of us growing up with it understanding the power of the Babe.
You remind me of the Babe.
What Babe?
Babe with the power.
What power?
Power of voodoo.
Voodoo?
You do. What? Remind me of the Babe.
That same year, after 27 years of marriage and 5 children, Jim and Jane separated. They remained close for the rest of their lives, and neither of them remarried. But it's quite ironic, considering he was a master of kids' entertainment. Jim was so involved with his work that he had very little time to spend with his own children. His daughter later said that the 5 of them began working with the Muppets at an early age, partly because one of the best ways of being around Dad was to work with him. During this time, Henson continued creating children's television, with shows such as Fraggle Rock and the animated Muppet Babies, but also addressed darker, more mature themes with his show The Storyteller, which won an Emmy for Outstanding Children's Program. He won another Emmy the next year for Outstanding Director for his show The Jim Henson Hour, which featured himself in a variety of his puppet creations. However, despite being well received by critics, the show was canceled after only 13 episodes due to low ratings.
I'd like to say just a word or two about television, if I may. I made my first puppets because I wanted to work in TV. And at that time, I thought that these electronic pictures were really something very magical. And I still do.
In 1989, Henson entered into negotiations to sell his company to the Walt Disney Company for almost $150 million, hoping he would be able to spend more of his time on the creative side of things, with Disney handling the business matters. By 1990, he had completed production on the television special The Muppets at Walt Disney World. However, the sale didn't go through, as a severe case of pneumonia would interrupt his plans. After days with a sore throat, he refused to get checked, even as he was coughing up blood. He suggested to Jane that he might be dying, but he did not want to take time off from his busy schedule to visit a hospital. Eventually, he agreed to go, but sadly, it was too late. The infection had already greatly weakened many of Henson's organs, and he died far too young at 53. Fans from all over the world responded with tributes and condolences. He had 2 memorial services, one in Manhattan and one in London, and in accordance with Henson's wishes, no one in attendance wore black. Both services were very emotional, as bands and co-workers sang songs from his shows. It was a breathtaking representation of what his legacy meant.
Looking here, I think I only realize now how large a man this was. This man that I just worked with and played with and had so much fun with. We had such great silly fun together. The best thing of all, the best thing is when you watch Jim laugh until he cried.
The Jim Henson Company, the Jim Henson Foundation, and Jim Henson's Creature Shop continue their work today and are still run by Henson's children.
You know, when my dad died, I was 26.
So
and then
young.
I was young, and I was in London. I was really working on animatronics and the Creature Shop and doing Labyrinth and movies like that, not so much Muppets. And then suddenly to be in charge of the company and in charge of the Muppets was it was a bit overwhelming. Yeah. And then, frankly, I needed a little bit of a break. Yeah. And my dad wanted the Muppets to go to Disney. He was selling the entire company to Disney when he died.
In 2004, Henson's wishes finally came true and the Muppets were sold to the Walt Disney Company. They continue to produce Muppet movies and TV shows, the most recent being Muppets Now, which is currently producing a second season for Disney+.
What about my idea for rotating guest stars?
They loved your guest star idea.
Great! We're going to be rotating them at 325 miles per hour in clotted cream.
Jim Henson's work lives on. There is no doubt he not only changed the puppeteering world, but entertainment as a whole. He directly or indirectly shaped generations of childhoods. Anyone who's watched any of his shows or movies remembers them fondly and treasures the memory as a time in which reality had no limits. His genius and imagination allowed us to visit worlds we never could have dreamed of, and he created characters with personalities we will never forget. Jim Henson is simply a legend.
I'll catch it because you're really brilliant with this stuff.
It's okay.
And Kermit, my apologies. I'm sorry about the Sesame Street. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kermit.
Hey Tonglers, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more exclusive Tongal content. And if you're a creator, be sure to visit the Tongal website at tongal.com for some exciting opportunities.